Join me today for another BattleTech book review. This time, Elements of Treason Duty by Craig A. Reed Jr. Welcome back to the Gate Cabal. My name is Bob, and today we're going to be talking about another BattleTech book, Elements of Treason Duty by Craig A. Reed Jr. And this book is about the formation of the new Tamar Pact from former Lyran Commonwealth worlds that were occupied by clans Wolf and Jade Falcon at various points. So, before I get into the spoiler section, I think the book is, it's well written, well paced. Dialogue's pretty good. There's not as much mech combat as you would expect from a BattleTech book, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing because you can only read cerulean lasers melting armor plates, the description of that, so many times before you just start glossing over things, which I actually did in one of the Dark Age books and completely missed a character's death. So maybe don't do that. uh, yeah, a lot of this is more the politicking, the more like ground level stuff. So you're talking more regular soldiers and battle armored infantry, things like that. And again, like a lot of political muckraking. Now, the book is kind of short. It's like 170 some odd pages, maybe exactly 170, a little bit over. And it, my only real complaint is that I feel like there would have been more issues in forming the Tamar Pact than what are presented in the book. But that's just me. You know, sometimes things just go well for people. And I'll kind of explain that when I get in the spoiler section. But like I said, well written. I like the characters. Um, I hope that this author or another author is allowed to come back to these characters to kind of flesh them out a little bit more, see where things advanced. I know that the Tamar Rising source book probably has some stuff on some of these characters. One for sure, I would have to imagine. But yeah, so it's an enjoyable book. I do believe this gentleman has written the other two Elements of Treason books, and I do plan on reading those. I haven't read this one. I look forward to them because I know one of them is also one, maybe both of the others also involve the Lyran Commonwealth. So I know one of them is about Vedette Brewster. I can never remember. He's the guy who tried to overthrow the Archon. It was briefly the Archon, and he takes up residence outside of Lyran space and is trying to form his own little empire. So, could be interesting. Anyway, so that's most of my non. Well, okay. I'll also mention that this is a uh, this is an IlClan Era book, not a Dark Age Era book, because this all takes place after or leading up to and then the aftermath of the battle for Terra. Now, the characters in this book do not know the outcome of that battle. They just know that the Wolves and the Falcons both took everything that wasn't bolted down and headed for Terra to fight it out. There are characters in this book who are former Jade Falcons. Well, they believe they're still Jade Falcons. They don't realize that the Jade Falcons aren't what they used to be and that they lost. So, and some of them do become former Jade Falcons. Um, so there's that. The back few pages. Hopefully you can see this in the camera. Get to them here. Have artwork for a lot of the various battle mechs that are in the book. I think most of the ones that were mentioned are covered back here, and this is the new artwork that was used for the models for the last two Kickstarters now. The Cygnus was not one of them, and I don't believe that's new art for the Cygnus, but I could be wrong on that. Just looking at it here, and maybe not the Sunder, but the others are all new artwork. So that's all quite nice in the back. Actually, seeing what the mechs look like, and then after that, there's like a glossary for terms, which I'm still going to try to compile a bunch of those and do. It's probably going to take a few videos to cover all of them, and even then, it still won't cover all of them. But that's a goal. But I'm going to sit down and actually write that out. So I haven't quite got to that yet. Anyway, so going forward from here will be the spoilered section where I'm going to basically lay out the book. So our main character is Sarah Regis, who is a general in the Lyran military, the Lyran Commonwealth Armed Forces, or LCAF. And she takes a regimental combat team to Arcturus, which is the former capital of the Lyran Commonwealth. That's where it started as the capital. And is also a member of the Tamar Pact, the old Tamar Pact, which was one of the founding points of the Lyran Commonwealth. It's her homeworld. It's been in other people's possessions over the last 20 some odd years, while she's been off fighting the good fight for the Lyrans, who've never really made much of a big move to retake these worlds. And now that the Falcons are gone, they're still not. Trillian Steiner has a million and one problems, so she can't really expand. And this woman takes it upon herself to do so. She goes, finds out that on Arcturus the Senate is basically in disarray. You've got people pushing for casinos while people are starving in the streets, and they've got a blight on their crops. It's difficult to trade. The blight, there's a solution to it. It's manufactured in another world that's like one or two jumps from there, but they're not sending the stuff. And so there's several problems. There's a few former Jade Falcon fanatics still left. So her forces, they take a good lay of the land. She's got an uncle he's former bigwig in the Lyran military. He's got a team of intelligence operatives, and he's been keeping his eye on things and moving behind the scenes. Took out a lot of the Falcons whenever the Falcons left, but this other group still kind of eludes him. There's a faction within the Senate that are former Falcons, one of the labor caste, I think. And so some of the Falcons are assimilating into nominally Lyran society, others less so. Because the Falcons took their warriors, but didn't take like the technician caste, the merchant class cast. They talk about the Malthus Syndicate, who I'll have to read the Tomorrow Rising book to learn more about them. I don't know if they're an actual, just legitimate crime syndicate, or if they are actually one of the friends for the Falcons. Because there's the Malthus blood name. Nikolai Malthus was the main villain in the cartoon, and he was a Jade Falcon. Spent most of his life fighting in the Lyran courts over that. So they show up, deal with a handful of problems, but generally the people on Arcturus don't want to go back to the Lyran Commonwealth. That would be her desire, would be to do that. She did not come there under orders. She took her own initiative. And ultimately she comes to the conclusion that the solution is to revive the Tamar Pact. And so she declares herself, it's like Secretary General, something like that, and temporarily disbands the Senate to eventually reinstate so that they can handle planetary affairs, while the person in her position will handle the collective affairs of the other planets in the Tamar Pact. She sends forces to the planet where they're manufacturing the chemical they need to fight the blight, deals with the gang members that are controlling that, welcomes them into the fold, and brings several other planets in very short order. And it's that part of the book where I feel like there would have been more bumps in the road. everyone seems to just really quickly acquiesce to, okay, let's throw in our lot with this now former Lyran general, who's basically crowned herself empress of this whole deal. And I just feel like there would have been more to it there. So that's my only real complaint about the book, is that everything went a little smoothly. The only real speed bump was there's one planet that the Falcons actually still had one of their Sibcos. They raise the children to be warriors, and they try to take as many of them alive as they can and take as many of the machines intact as they can, because they have their regimental combat team, but that's not enough to defend 8, 10, 12, however many planets wind up in the pact. So they need soldiers and resources, and that is the one speed bump they do talk about, is they don't really have any training facilities beyond, like, basic infantry type training. They're going to need specialized training for mech warriors, tank crews, things like that. And so at the moment, the best they can do is pair them up with people in the field, which, that beats nothing, obviously. But if you have people that have gone through clan training, they're warriors already, even if they're like 15 or 16. So to have them to bolster your ranks, plus to help train others, that's good. And that's where uh, the people they send, one of them knows all the clan protocols, and so they hit them with a trial of possession for the planet, their mechs, the buildings, everything, and they win. So the Falcons do, the ones that aren't the fanatics do surrender, and you follow one in particular who the commander there tries to explain to her that their current leader, Malvina Hazen, is insane, and her doctrine is insane and goes against clan honor in every way. And she initially doesn't believe him, but then he allows her access to all the archives to see everything she's done. And she comes around and he starts training her, basically how to be a regular person and not just a clan warrior. So she's from the Hazen bloodline, which is the same as Malvina, but also Elizabeth Hazen, I believe she's one of the founders of the clan. And so she ends up renouncing the Hazen blood name at the end, and he cuts her bond cords and makes her a full-on soldier at that point. Uh, so they do find the Falcon terrorists and take them out. And the guy who's the Duke of the planet, that everyone, including him, knows is not suited for the job, he gets wounded, so it allows him to step down and force his brother, who's probably the better guy for the job, into position. And pretty well everyone understands that he's never going to recover. So his brother's going to be the Duke now. And you still have some political muckraking behind the scenes. There's a couple other people that are trying to set themselves up in charge, and they kind of engineer some events towards the end. So there's a big brawl at a political wedding, and a few people die, but none of the main characters or villains, aside from the clan folks, uh, the Jade Falcons, who are still on the planet acting as terrorists. So there is plenty of action, just not mech action, which again isn't always a bad thing. There are other elements of the BattleTech universe. So overall, I like the book. Definitely looking forward to the others in the series, and like the author, would like to see a longer book where some other things are fleshed out. But other than that, I think it's definitely worth a read. It was a quick read once I started having time to get into it. Like I said, it's about 170 pages, and I think the others are of a similar length, but I'd have to double check. But anyway, uh, definitely worth checking out. I haven't really encountered what I would call a bad BattleTech book. So, some of these reviews, you watch them all like, oh, it's a good book. It's a good book. And it's because they're, once you know what you're dealing with, they're competently written. None of them are Shakespeare by any stretch, but you don't expect that. So, I don't see what the problem is. So, anyway, uh, good book. Check it out. Have to see what I go to next. The next book review might be a non-BattleTech book, might be a non-fiction book. We'll have to see if I get through it or not. in time for the next review. I'm going to finish it, but might end up buying more BattleTech books between now and then because they're a quick read and it's a nice distraction. Because the others are more serious topics. Like I've got one that's about urban planning and why cities in the United States are very poorly designed. Interesting book. But anyway, hope you folks enjoyed this. If you did, let me know down in the comments if you plan on checking the book out or if you've read it already. Be sure to check out my other book reviews on here for other BattleTech books. And hopefully, I'm going to have some time here in the next couple weeks to finally get into the campaign setting type books for Tomorrow Rising, Empire Alone, and Dominions Divided, so I can review them. And there's a couple older ones I'm going to review here on the channel. It's kind of hard to. They're about like the succession wars, things like that. And it's kind of hard to have a competent review that's of any real length because it's basically like, well, this book talks about the succession wars. That's what it does. It's really good at it. You should read it. Like that could be the review. But anyway, like I said, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But otherwise, thank you for watching. And remember, no guts, no galaxy.